Now, I'm now 8 months into owning a GranTurismo S and running it on Evo, and I thought it's about time I gave you a tour around it. If you read Evo regularly, you'll know that it's the second one I've had. I had the GranTurismo, the standard 4.2, while the GranTurismo S, this one, is the 4.7, and then there's two versions of that. There's an automatic version, and then there's one called MC, which comes with a paddle shift gearbox, automated manual. Very, very different cars, the automatic and the MC shift, which we'll go into later. Number one thing to say about this car, it's a great looking car. For me, it's one of the best looking coupes on the market. Came out in 2007 and really hasn't dated. But you have to remember it's actually a very big car, and it's over 4.9 metres long, and probably doesn't mean much, but if I put a Range Rover beside it, it's actually the same size as a Range Rover. Now, you say, well, for a sports car, it's a bit too big. It's about 250mm bigger than the Aston Martin DB9. But with two 16-year-old kids, I really like it. It's much more useful than the DB9. It's got proper rear seats. Some of the really distinctive bits on it are the grille, obviously, with the Trident and the two red stripes saying this is the most sporty example. And then the Trident wheel design, which I think is really fantastic. It's actually the standard wheel on this model, the red calipers. And then there's this beautiful line over it here, and then the way that rising line over that rear wheel looks really good. Two ways of differentiating the 4.7S are by these exhausts. If you've got these sort of oval exhausts, then that's actually the MC shift with a super aggressive gear change. So that's my driving position there. If I just tip this forward and do this, one of the pains actually is how slow that is. Look, if I get in the back. There we go. I'm 6'2", so yeah, I can sit behind me, but normal 5'8", 5'10", it's no problem at all. There we go. That's how spacious it is. And apart from the rear seats, the other reason why this car is so big is look where they've put the engine. It's so tucked up in the bulkhead. It's unreal. You look there, that bar there is actually in line with the struts on the wheels. So the whole engine is one of these front mid-engine cars. It's way behind the front wheels. All in the aid of handling, but it does nothing for packaging, because you've got this great big area at the front, just like the Ferrari 599 and the Mercedes SLS. That's just full of radiators and air conditioning and plastic bits. And one of the great things about this car, as I've said before, is the noise. And as soon as you get in, it just has that sort of rumble, that sort of exotic sort of sound, slightly Ferrari. But great. As I say, press the sport and it all goes very quiet, very relaxed. Move off. This is in automatic mode. So remember, it's an automated manual, so there's a little bit of a pause. And again, pretty usable. It all falls down when it's cold. I have to say, coming out of the garage in the morning or something like that, I really want the automatic gearbox and not this paddle shift. But it makes a reasonable fist of it. If I did a lot of city driving, then I'd choose the automatic. This car's got Skyhook, and if I was ordering new, it's not an option I'd pick. It gives a slightly softer ride when you're just driving like this, but there's sort of a looseness to the damping that it doesn't feel quite right. It's almost too loose, and then it tightens up once if you're driving a bit more aggressively, and it comes okay. But cruising, I really don't like it. And the other trouble with it is when you press sport, it goes too stiff. And sometimes I just want the noise and not the really stiff ride, but you can't do that. So the standard setup with just normal springs and dampers is the one I'd pick, and it saves you about 1,500 quid. Yeah, price. We talk about price. This car new is around £90,000. And one of the hardest things to do with the GranTurismo is to sort of pigeonhole where it sits, because it's a lot posher than something like a 6 Series BMW. But it's what, 30, 40,000 pounds cheaper than an Aston Martin DB9, and it's got the rear seats. So you think it's quite hard to pitch where it is. Is it a Mercedes CL rival? Well, they're even bigger, and they're about 115,000. Well, I'd much rather buy a Maserati at 90,000 than a Mercedes at 115. I bought this car second hand with about 14,000 miles, and it cost me 68, but they're around 60,000 at the moment, and they're quite rare, the MC shift, so I can see that they'll always be worth a premium, sort of 50,000 or so. Quite a few 4.2s for sale, because I think a lot of owners there have now bought 4.7s and are getting out of the 4.2. After, well, how long have I owned it? About 8-9 months. Some of the things I really like about it, some of the things I don't. I still don't like the seats. They don't support me. They're okay. I don't get uncomfortable, but in such a sporting car as this, I sort of expect something better. There's an MC Stalia, even more expensive version at about 115,000, and that gets proper semi-race seats. They recline. I think they're out the end zone. But the trouble with that car, you don't get the back seats. You just get a roll cage, and that's absolutely useless as far as I'm concerned in a car that's really a GT. So I don't like the seats. I don't like the fuel consumption. Yeah, it's never going to be the most economical car in the world, but my old 4.2 would do 25, 27 if I really drove like a saint. But this car, I'm in the teens. I'm 18, 19. It's self-inflicted because I do use the sport button and drive it fairly aggressively. But even if I just drive as sensibly as I can, I've struggled into the 20s. If you get the automatic version, surprisingly, they're much better on fuel. But this MC Shift, lower geared, does like a drink. What else do I like? Sat nav, bloody useless. It's one of those you can't put the full postcode in. It's never really good at routing, so I'm always ended up with a TomTom. Yes, it's an exotic car, but the costs with servicing and that sort of thing, if you go and trade one in, they always seem to take your pants down, come trade in time, and then sell it for a lot more. But that's part of Ferrari Maserati dealerships. They just seem to want a bigger margin than anyone else. So it's a good job. It's got a lot of upsides. Absolutely beautiful to look at. Huge pride when you tell people you own a Maserati. The name, it's, magic, really, isn't it? I mean, it's up there with Aston Martin in my book. But what I love most of all is the small button and its other character. Super quick gear change once you're over 4,500 RPM into this MC shift. Really does bang it in. Something to 60, 180 something mile an hour. Let's go in some, I don't know, about 10 seconds to 100, something like that. That's why it's going to stick around a little longer, below the fuel consumption.